champion and of course Ferrari's biggest fan, as the round 2 of the 2025 FIA Formula One World Championship, the first sprint Grand Prix weekend of the season just concluded up there in Shanghai on the Shanghai International Circuit in China, which is just a short flight here from Taipei City, Taiwan, where of course our home sweet home of the Scuderia Ferrari is located. And yeah, very interesting race. You know, we will tell you everything about it, where we gonna lift the trophy again as we did during the sprint. Well, you probably know that it wasn't the red time, it was more sadly the orange time once again in the Grand Prix, but I do believe we definitely had a pace for victory. We could have gotten a 1-2, and we will tell you exactly how that could have happened. We will also take a look at the race results and the drivers and the Constructors' Championship, and sadly we have to talk about some of the technical regulations because we've just gotten the news, you know, roughly 20 minutes before recording this video, of something which will have a major consequences on this race result. So we will have to take a look at it. We don't know obviously if that will be the case for if it will actually, you know, really come into fruition, but basically we will talk about exactly what happened after the race, because that's maybe even more important than what happened during the race. So, you know, you've just seen that super fantastic sprint reaction, right? You know, when we were celebrating with this Formula One Grand Prix winner trophy, where we put on that Paris Olympics 2024 Olympic medal, because it was such a great race for Scuderia Ferrari, as Lewis Hamilton obviously took that first kind of a victory, the sprint victory for Scuderia Ferrari, our first ever sprint win as well. So lots of the first, lots of positives to take here from Shanghai, you know, lots of the lessons learned as well. And obviously, you know, as Hamilton and Leclerc both made changes to the setup of that beautiful Scarlet Ferrari, which could be driven with the SF1000T818 Formula One racing simulator, as you can see over here. Obviously, they are racing with that newest SF25. You know, it probably changed the fortunes for both of them, right? So in qualifying, Hamilton and Leclerc only looked out the third row, but we were only 2-3 tenths of the ultimate pace. Obviously, Piastri on pole, Norris slightly slower, unable to beat Piastri in qualifying, right? So what happened was that Russell, you know, came at the very end of the qualifying to pump in the lap, which was good enough for the second place on the front row, obviously. Verstappen did a good job, you know, qualifying 4th ahead, obviously, of us Ferraris 5th and 6th. And that was pretty much it, because the other cars, especially the Racing Bulls, were a little bit farther apart. So we made slight changes. Obviously, we didn't know with the race fuel load, which obviously can be, you know, make the car quite heavy. What exactly will happen? You know, will that have a positive or negative impact? Again, obviously, the sprint is run pretty much at noon, at 11 a.m. So there would be lots of sunshine. Obviously, the track temperatures would be very high. That wasn't the case, obviously, for the Grand Prix, which takes place at 3 p.m. Kind of traditionally in Shanghai, which also means, because we are still, the race is running, you know, now we just started the spring season, right? So you have to understand that, you know, it gets dark quite quickly, right? So it means that by about 4 p.m. the temperatures will start dropping, and also the track temperature. So usually we do perform better when the track is hot, right? And that was the case, I would say, during the race. So we line up on the grid. You know, most of the cars started on the mediums, some of the cars in the back started on the hards, and we had a really good start. I was pretty happy, you know, that we were able to get a Verstappen who surprisingly didn't get a good launch. Norris, who usually, you know, does very badly at the start, he, you know, got a really good start. Was able then to jump Russell. So McLarens were running 1 and 2, then you had Russell, and behind them we had FORZA Ferraris with Hamilton and Leclerc. But there was a slight touch, because obviously Verstappen and Hamilton were on the outside of that kind of the round, the snake turn that you can see there on the calendar, right? The turns 1, 2 and 3. Leclerc was on the inside, hit a little bit of the inside curb, which obviously unsettled the car good enough to so that with his left front wing end plate, he hit the right wheel, the right rear tire of Lewis Hamilton. So that could have had much drastic consequences, but obviously it you know, made the Leclerc's car a little bit lighter, and we will get back to that very soon. That weight, which will be very important. So we were running 4 and 5, and Hamilton was quite you know, right on the tail of Russell, for example, but he wasn't able to make any inroads. After a couple of laps, it pretty much stabilized. 1 to 2 seconds gap between obviously Piastri, Norris, Russell, and then both Ferraris of obviously 7-time champion Lewis Hamilton, and then Charles Leclerc. And Verstappen started dropping back, so we thought he was kind of out of the picture. Now we started on a mediums, and here there is obviously the new surface which provides much more grip, so we were not sure what exactly would that mean. Would that mean that we would have to go for a two-stopper? Also in a sprint weekend you have 12 sets of tires available, not the 13 sets that you normally have, which is a bit that doesn't kind of make a sense. It's a bit counterintuitive, right? Because you will think with the more kind of racing you would get more tires, but actually do get less. So we didn't have, for example, many of the softs available. It always depends on the tire allocation. So when I do the races, I obviously do want to make sure that I have lots of mediums available, because that was the fastest tire. That was the tire that gave us the sprint victory, right? And I do believe if, for example, we did probably medium, hard, medium with Hamilton, I do believe that we could have gotten even better. But basically the problem was that on the mediums we didn't make any progress, and we stopped too early. So Hamilton already by the end of lap 12 switched to the hards, and that would be all good, because the undercut over here, which means that you stop earlier than your competitors, and then you have a fresh rubber, and you can go 1, 2, 3 even seconds faster, because the track's quite long, right? Over 90 seconds in length, so you can make some inroads, right? So you could, if for example, like let's say we were Piastri was leading, Norris was 2 seconds behind, then Russell, then Hamilton. If for example Hamilton would stop, then he would be able to jump Russell, then obviously Piastri would stop, because he would have the preferred option to Norris, right? Because you can't double stack if you are too close. Then we would maybe be even able to jump Norris. But for that, we would have to emerge in a clean air, which didn't happen. So sadly, as a result, when Hamilton, got into traffic, then obviously you are behind the cars who are on the medium or the hard tires. They are about 1 second slower, so you're not really making up any time, because it's hard to overtake them unless you get on that long straight, right, where obviously there the overtake is relatively easy, but because you come out of the pits, right, so then you have to kind of go for about 75-80% of the track behind them, losing that valuable time. So from that strategy, I do believe we stopped about 2-3 laps too early. We were the first to stop, so it triggered all the pit stops. But it didn't have much of an effect. But some of the cars, for example, in the back, they were able, to get quite a good jump. For example, if they emerge in a clean air, and then they would pump in, for example, a really good, outlap, and as a result, were able to make up the places. But we were not, sadly. But you could see it, for example, working well for Russell, right? So Russell, he stopped 1 lap before Norris did, and he was able to get him, even though he was a couple of seconds behind him. So that was good thinking. Obviously, we stopped Hamilton first, then Leclerc, but basically it meant that we kind of kept the same position. And then interesting thing happened about lap 16, 17, 18, when Hamilton settled on the hard tires. It kind of became clear that Leclerc, even with that front wing end plate missing, which obviously Ferraris, we elected not to change the wing during the pit stop, which would again make the car heavier, but would give all the downforce back to Leclerc. Again, we are talking a lot about the weight, because the big shocking news is coming very soon. As a result, obviously we wouldn't lose the additional 5-6 seconds that it takes, to kind of unscrew the wing, right, take it out, put it in, the pit stops are amazing in Formula One, but they are really at the limit of the time. So there's not much quicker than you can do it, and obviously we didn't want to lose the position to Verstappen. But so Leclerc was doing fine. He didn't struggle with grading, surprisingly, maybe because he had less of a wing on that left-hand side. So probably that actually helped his tire a little bit. Also different, setup. Everything could work well. And at the time, when Leclerc overtook, he quickly caught up to Russell, but was unable to overtake, because coming out of that snake, those long, almost 270-degree turns, he was unable to keep up the pace with Russell. So when he opened up the DRS, he was almost second behind, even though he was within the DRS zone. So he would be about half a second behind him, heading into the hairpin, and then obviously on a start-finish straight. The DRS is just too slow, too short. So as a result, you're not easily able, if you're not right on the guy's gearbox, the guy in front of you, then you are unable, to really make the move into the turn 1, where there are several lines where if you quicker, you can make it. So Leclerc put in a pressure on Russell, but basically, cook his tires a little bit, which came in to then haunt him, because he then ran out of the tires, I believe, by the end of the race. But yeah, if we would have done that undercut, a little bit better, I do believe we would be able then to clear Russell, maybe even Norris, and then we would be able to challenge Piastri, because as Leclerc said, when he got in front of Hamilton, especially with Charles, he said the pace is there, we seem the fastest. Hamilton was then the only driver who actually did a two-stop, right? So the race then kind of settled after Leclerc was unable to overtake George. Not many more overtakes till the end of the race, sadly. Only that Red Bull came back as the fuel load went down, so that's interesting characteristics of their car. Sadly, Charles then over to first up and then over to Charles. That was disappointing that we lost it with about 3 laps, to go. Hamilton did a good job, coming back, but obviously if you do medium, hard, Hamilton didn't just have the ultimate pace of over 1 second per lap quicker than the front runners. It was about 0.7, 0.8, so it was unable, to really catch up, but he still finished, as I can see over here, 2.1 seconds behind Leclerc, which was pretty much the time, the time difference between them when he made a pit stop. So probably wouldn't make a big difference, but I do believe if we had a medium tire with 20 laps to go, some of the guys, for example, like Berman, for example, did a great job, overtaking, also a bit of Stroll, surprisingly. With that medium tire, I do believe it could have been, possible for Hamilton to come back. But yeah, again, because it was in the end a one-stopper, which was a bit of a surprise, it was critical to get that pit stop right. I thought the start was okay. Maybe we could have made up one more position. And, look at Norris's brake problems, right? They obviously, he lost almost all the brakes on the last lap, so Russell almost, overtook him. But, if we were in front of the Russell, we probably would be able to overtake him. Piastri would be a long shot. I believe if we made no changes to Hamilton's car, I do believe that with Lewis we also would have been very strong, because if Lewis was, on the pace that he had during sprint, right, and in general just a couple of tenths faster than Leclerc, we definitely could have fought for a victory. Charles definitely thought, even a win or, 1-2 was possible. So missed opportunity. I'm a little bit sad that we can't play that Italian anthem, that we couldn't hear it on a podium and celebrate, but there are more news to come. So let's take a look over here in our Scuderia Retina iMac over here, how the race then panned out. So over here you can see it nicely. So basically Oscar Piastri winning over here from Lando Norris, George Russell finishing third, then you have Max Verstappen there, and Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton pretty much within 20-25 seconds of the leader, which would then explain if you're 0.2, 0.3 seconds slower in qualifying, that's what you get for a race distance. 7, Esteban Ocon, big surprise for Haas, they ran very well and gotten the strategy spot on. 8, Andrea Antonelli struggled a bit for Mercedes-Benz. But again, he's learning, had some damage to the floor of the car, I do believe. Birthday boy Alexander Albon, they did mention it a lot in the commentary, finished 9. 10 for Oliver Behrman, so Haas is, did very well. Behrman obviously provided lots of the overtakes, did really well there. So this was the result. The winner, obviously, Oscar Piastri for McLaren. So 3 different races, 2 Grand Prix, 1 sprint, and we had Norris winning, Piastri winning the main events in Australia and China, respectively, and Hamilton winning sprint. So, it's looking interesting. So as a result, if we do take a look over here at the driver standings, so this is how the championship looks like, or does it? Formula One Drivers' Championship for the 2025-2025 season is turning out to be really exciting. So look at this. So Lando Norris leading with 44 points, but only 8 points ahead of second Max Verstappen. George Russell third with 35 points. So again, everything to play for. Then you have 4 Oscar Piastri with 34 points. And then you have 5th Andrea Antonelli with 18 points, who is ahead of Charles Leclerc, because Antonelli finished 4th in Australia, so that's kind of the tie-break that you have. So Leclerc is then 6th with 18 points. What a pity that Verstappen overtook us, otherwise we could have been 5th and 6th exactly as we finished, which I think would be a true representation where we should be. What a pity that Leclerc then didn't swap back with Hamilton in the end. I do believe Lewis deserved it, but hey, they are both competitive. Hamilton then 7th with 17 points, so looking pretty good. But is it gonna stay like this? Well, then we have 8 Alexander Albon 12 points, showing signs the way. 9 Lance Stroll with 8 points, 10 Esteban Ocon with 6 points, 11 then Nico Hülkenberg 6 points, 12 Yuki Tsunoda with 3 points, and 13 Oliver Behrman, the last driver so far this season to get 1 point there. Then the other drivers who are now classified: 14 Pierre Gasly 0 points, 15 Carlos Sainz 0 points. With 0 points you also have 16 Isaac Hadjar, 17 Liam Lawson. Probably, will he stay at Red Bull? That's a big question. 18 Jack Doohan. Will he stay in Alpine? Does quite well. 19, Gabriel Bortoleto and Fernando Alonso, who retired due to the brake failure, just like Norris had a brake failure. So Alonso is still the only driver not to be classified. The most experienced driver cannot get classified. How is that possible? So this is how the standing looks like. For the constructors, it should look as follows. So for the Formula One Constructors Championship, the teams in 2025-2025, so we can see McLaren leading with 78 points, so they suddenly established a bit of a gap over second Mercedes with 53 points, obviously who mostly benefit from a strong Russell, just like Red Bull Racing benefits from the strong point scoring by Verstappen, who scored all 36 points, more than us. Leclerc, Hamilton, Scuderia Ferrari 35 points, so a bit disappointing. We expected to go to the third place, but will we stay there? 5th Williams 12 points, 6 Aston Martin 8 points, 7 Haas 7 points, 8 Kick Sauber 6 points, 9 Racing Bulls 3 points, Alpine 10 with 0 points. But here we have to tell you something about the race result, which will probably be changed, and so why will it be changed? Because we just learned in the past 20 minutes or so that Scuderia Ferrari have been disqualified from the Chinese Grand Prix. It breaks my heart, to hear that. It is apparently due to, the cars, the Leclerc's car, just like Alpine's Gasly's car, about 1 kilogram underweight. Ferrari were permitted to change that front wing, which obviously if you lose some parts of the car, it will of course make it lighter because they are not on the car anymore. So, but the car was still underweight, so that would suggest that we didn't have a safety car, that maybe we underfueled the car, and there was not enough of the sample fuel, because when they took out the fuel, the car was 799.0 kilograms. The permitted weight is 800 kilograms, so that disqualified Leclerc. Gasly as well. I can't believe it. Maybe we will be reinstated. So we gave you the table how it looks like, but obviously in the race introduction to the next race, which you can see there taking place at the beginning of April during the Children's Day holiday over here, and as the Easter is obviously coming up soon, that will be in Suzuka, Japan. We will then tell you how the standings looks like. But there will probably be sadly some changes, and Lewis Hamilton disqualified as well, but for a different issue with the excessive playing wear, which is the same thing that happened in 2023 United States Grand Prix. It was by about roughly 0.03 millimeters. So that's why it's very important. I do teach physics, to again, have the measurements right, to be exactly precise. There is a great statement from Scuderia Ferrari coming that we haven't done this on purpose, that it's a genuine calibration mistake, and it's a terrible mistake. This is gonna cost us lots of points. Thankfully, this race obviously we didn't do that well. 5th and 6th place, so 18 points. But I cannot believe it. If that is the case, we will, I believe, be 8th in the standings, and obviously for Hamilton and for Leclerc, we will hardly be in the top 10. So this will be the worst start to the Formula One season in a long time, probably 20 plus years. I have to go back to exact statistics, but I cannot believe, after such a great sprint weekend, how exactly this could have happened. We can say just congratulations to McLaren, they were lucky. But if that disqualification seems to be confirmed, it's a huge shock. I'm really sad to obviously announce it, but it does look like that, we will indeed be disqualified. So absolutely shocking that, after only scoring mere 5 points in Australia, in the Grand Prix we would score 0. At least we've gotten these 12 points in a sprint. We were, 13 points in a sprint, of course. We were really, really strong in a sprint. And I do believe, there's a lot we can learn. Now at least we know how to make the cars legal, so they are not underweight, so there are no any issues. And especially, how to set up the car, right? Because if we can win a sprint, we know we made some changes in the Grand Prix, it didn't work, different temperatures. I do believe, we could spring a surprise in Japan, but definitely for us, the season starts in April, and we can kind of forget March 2025, or should we? Well, come on, that first Lewis Hamilton victory in the sprint race, and the first ever Scuderia Ferrari sprint victory was absolutely amazing, and this is what I will take from the weekend. I hope you will too. We are still very, very excited. There are 22 races, we can definitely turn it around. I do believe we could have won, you know, pretty much all of the Grand Prix. We definitely won the sprint. And I believe we will show that very, very soon. So, you guys, we will be lifting the Grand Prix Winners' Trophy very, very soon. The Formula One Grand Prix Winners' Trophy, putting these medals and putting the opposition back into the distance, because that's where we belong, right? So, everybody, let's support Scuderia Ferrari. Enjoy the rest of the match. We will see you in April. Forza Ferrari! Come on, let's go! I know we are down. We made some mistakes, but now we know